Well, let's talk a little bit about this notion of praying as a grown-up. You know, when it comes to our spiritual well-being, one of the problems that we encounter is the fact that while most of us were taught how to pray as children, many of us were not taught how to pray now that we're adults. And as a result, so many of us approach prayer as a child would. And that's often akin to this image that I'm showing you. It's an image of sitting on Santa's lap and asking for what we want, promising to be good and hoping that our reward for being good will be getting what we ask for. Well, the problem is, like an adult that's trying to sit on Santa's lap, we've outgrown this notion now that we're adults. We don't fit anymore. This image of praying doesn't fit. What does fit? Well, St. Ignatius of Loyola was a great teacher of prayer, and he taught that prayer should resemble the image of a conversation between two friends. Just very relaxed. That's a lot different than sitting on Santa's lap and asking for something and hoping that he'll give it to us because we've been good. It's not about us being a good boy or a good girl. It's about being in a relationship with the Lord, to whom we can talk as well as listen to. And that brings us to a method of praying that St. Ignatius developed and that Jim Manny talks about in his book, A Simple Life-Changing Prayer. This prayer is called the Daily Examen. And, of course, St. Ignatius lived over 500 years ago, so this method of prayer is quite ancient, and it really existed before him. He really was the person who sort of put it into a method to give to mass publication, so to speak. Now, for this activity, I did make a handout available. This is the one that we're looking at now, Praying as a Grown-Up, the Daily Examen. And so hopefully you have this handout available with you now. If not, once again, you can get this after the webinar by visiting my blog. So the Daily Examen is really an adult way to pray. It's a way just to have a conversation with the Lord. And it's supposed to last no more than 15 minutes. In fact, St. Ignatius used to, at times, correct some of his followers who were bragging about taking the Daily Examen and extending it to an hour and thinking that there was more piety involved. And he said, no. It needs to be brief. This is the type of prayer that we need to teach the lay people that we are walking among. And they don't have time to take a full hour away just to sit and contemplate and meditate. They're on the run. They're busy. So he said, keep it at 15, 20 minutes. It can even be done in shorter amounts of time. And the best way to learn something, of course, is by doing it. And so we're going to actually pray a daily examen together right now in, I'd say, a rather shortened version. We're probably going to take about 5 minutes tops. But just to give you a feel for what the daily examen is all about, all you need to do is to listen to my voice as I direct you in your conversation with Jesus. So what I'd like to invite you to do right now, first thing is to simply get comfortable. And I invite you, if you wish, to close your eyes. And just take a few deep breaths just to slow down your metabolism, slow down your heart rate, relax your body. But just take a few deep breaths in and out. The first step of the examen then is to begin by asking God for light, asking Him for guidance. Just asking God for the ability to look at your day through God's eyes, not your own. So go ahead and talk to God now, asking Him to guide your prayer. The next step of the examine is to give thanks. So just take a few moments now to talk to God and give Him thanks for the day that you've just experienced. From the moment you woke up to this moment now, just thank God for this day. The next step of the examine is just to review your day. So with the Lord at your side, review the day you've just experienced, looking at all of the experiences and encounters, the events and the people that made up your day. And just talk to the Lord about any of these moments that pop into your memory, into your imagination. So just talk to the Lord now about the day you've just spent reviewing the experiences. The next step in our examine is to face up to our shortcomings. So having looked at your day, just talk to the Lord about any experiences or encounters during your day that you're not particularly proud of. And ask forgiveness, knowing that the Lord's mercy is always ready. And then finally, the fifth step of the daily examine is to transition or segue to looking into the future, looking forward to the day to come. So shift your attention to the day that awaits you. And as you look at that day, just ask the Lord for whatever grace that you're going to need. And then St. Ignatius encourages us to finish the daily examine by praying the Lord's Prayer as a way of bringing that experience to a close. I hope this gave you just a very brief feeling for what the daily examine is all about. It's simply a context within a conversation that a conversation can take place within. And so I hope it's something that you can become accustomed to and use just about anywhere. You don't have to be on retreat to do this. As I mentioned, I do it when I'm on a noisy, crowded train in the morning or coming home at the end of my day. This is also a wonderful method to teach to children. And I do know some catechists who teach the daily examine and use it with those that they're teaching. And in fact, I didn't plan on this, but if anyone has a thought to write into the Q&A panel about how they're doing this, just to maybe type in a thought or two that, you're teaching fifth graders how to do the daily examine, or you do it weekly, and we'll keep an eye open for any comments that come in. Maybe I'll ask Nick if he spots any. We might be able to share some in just a second. So, of course, that was a shortened version of the daily examine, but I hope that it gave you the gist of the method so that you can incorporate it into your spiritual practices and take care of your own spiritual well-being. So this gives us a taste of the kind of formation that we need to continue to pursue in this first area of being, this first dimension of our formation. So we're going to be moving on to the next dimension of our formation, which is knowing. Okay, so the knowing of our faith. Let's face it, our Catholic tradition can sometimes seem somewhat complex at times. It sometimes feels as though we need to have a graduate degree in theology in order to understand some aspects of our Catholic faith. And hey, when you stop and think about it, the Catechism of the Catholic Church is over 900 pages long. So, what's an average Joe to do? We can feel overwhelmed when it comes to knowing of our faith. Well, we're going to attempt to simplify some things in this next portion of our formation. Knowing our faith is something that's done not only with our brains, but also with our heart. On the one hand, it's not rocket science, but on the other hand, it's certainly not fluff. There's indeed a great deal of content to our faith that we need to know. However, I can emphasize that instead of being overwhelmed by that, what we need to do is to develop an insatiable appetite for constantly being nourished by all of this knowledge of our faith, something that is going to be a nourishment we can turn to for the rest of our lives. So let's get started with this notion. So this exercise that we're going to participate in is called A Little Help, H-E-L-P, and we're going to be drawing from my book, A Well-Built Faith. And the letters H-E-L-P are actually an acronym. They're going to give us a clue about how to deepen the knowledge of our faith in really a very, very simple manner. Now, I'd like to begin this section by sharing with you an experience that I wrote about in my book, A Well-Built Faith. In that book, I tell a story about an experience that happened shortly after 9/11, when, of course, the tensions were very high between Muslims and non-Muslims. And I was asked to take on the responsibility of reaching out to the Muslim community on behalf of a cluster of parish directors of religious education on the southwest side of Chicago, which I did. I met and was received graciously by the imam of the mosque in a nearby suburb, and I invited him to meet with these directors of religious education for a dialogue, an invitation that he very eagerly accepted. But a couple of days before the meeting took place, he called and said that something had come up and he was not going to be able to attend, but he would send someone in his place. So the day arrived, and indeed a gentleman came to represent the imam, and he spent over an hour with us in a roundtable discussion in which he really just was so impressive. He articulately laid out the principles of the Islamic faith, the 5 pillars of Islam, and he flawlessly answered all of our questions. So afterwards, we were standing around having donut holes and refreshments, and I asked him what his role at the mosque was, thinking, well, he must be like the associate imam or something like that. And he laughed and he said, oh, no, I don't work at the mosque. I own a video store on 95th Street. And all of us were just sort of shocked. We thought that we were talking to, for lack of a better word, a professional Muslim. And it made us realize that this was someone who understood his faith so well as a layperson, in a sense, a lay Muslim.